Driving is one of the most common activities of the 21st century, and in fact, has become so routine that most drivers feel that they are on autopilot the minute they get behind the wheel. In reality, though, it shouldn't matter whether you are driving down the street to the local grocery store, or if you operate a motor vehicle for a living. Driving safety must always be a priority. Although each and every one of us experience distractions in our day-to-day activities, limiting these distractions while driving may mean the difference between life and death. In the next 15 minutes, we will explore several common distracted driving behaviors, offer some suggestions on how to limit them, and show just how effective a little bit of pre-trip planning can be. First off, what exactly should be considered a distraction? Well, defined, distraction is any action that takes our attention off of our main responsibility, which in this case is driving. Now, while there are countless distractions happening all around us, even as we speak, let's take a closer look at several driving behaviors that should be avoided while operating a motor vehicle, and potentially save your life. While listening to the radio or putting on your favorite CD while driving is a great way to pass the time, there are several very important considerations that must be addressed. First of all, although you may be very familiar with the controls on your radio or CD player, it is suggested that you set these items, as well as other devices like climate control knobs and mirrors, prior to beginning your trip. Taking your eyes off the road to adjust these devices can become a distraction and hinder your ability to drive safely. Now, you might be saying, but it only takes a second or two to adjust my radio. While this is probably true, let's take a look at what can happen in that 1 or 2 seconds our eyes are off the road. On a city road traveling at 30 miles per hour, you travel at a rate of 44 feet per second, and in 2 seconds, 88 feet, and so on and so forth. Now let's assume that you're being a cautious driver and have left 4 seconds or approximately 350 feet of space between you and the vehicle in front of you. In the 2 seconds spent changing the station on the radio, 165 feet were wasted due to the distraction. Your reaction time eats up another 80 feet, leaving only 105 feet to stop. And since most cars require 175 feet to stop at 60 miles per hour, you simply don't have enough time to stop safely. And these calculations are assuming that you're driving a 4-door sedan. If you're driving a larger vehicle, your required stopping distance is much greater. So you can see why you can't afford to be distracted. Just that second or two can be the difference between being safe and being in an accident. Now, of course, in the real world, these controls will eventually require an adjustment. So here are a few suggestions on how to safely adjust your radio while driving. If you are traveling on a highway and need to make an adjustment, make sure to have plenty of space between you and the car in front of you, about 6 to 8 seconds. To check how much space you have, pick a mark on the road that the car in front of you is heading towards. When the car hits that mark, you begin counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you keep counting until you have passed the same mark. By practicing this simple concept, you can assure that you always keep enough space between you and the driver in front of you. It is also recommended that you add an additional second for each hazard that may exist at that moment, including bad weather or road construction. Now, although this counting method can be very effective, it is still suggested that when traveling on city streets, you wait until you are stopped at a traffic signal or stop sign, and then make the adjustment to your radio. Adjusting your radio and comfort controls are not the only potential distractions that a driver will face. Oftentimes, in a driver's haste to get on the road, they neglect to properly secure items within the cabin and cargo areas. Now, this poses a significant risk to the driver because, as we all know, objects tend to shift while driving, leading to sudden noises or distracting movements that can take a driver's eyes off the road. Always make sure to take an extra moment or two to secure all items within the cargo and cabin areas of your vehicle. Take extra care with larger items that may shift while in transit and that could potentially cause loud or sudden noises. By minimizing the number of possible distractions that unsecured items can cause, a driver can spend more time concentrating on the most important task in front of them: driving. Clipboards, work orders, packing slips, directions, maps, or even logbooks. Each of these are often a culprit in distracted driving. How, you may ask? Let's take a look. Oftentimes, drivers will refer to these items frequently during transit and will usually place them within reach for easy review. Now, when a driver looks down to find that their clipboard or map isn't exactly where they put it, it inevitably draws their eyes off the road. And this is only the first part of the distraction. Once they locate it, now they have to reach it. And often, that isn't an easy task, especially if it's on the floor on the other side of the cabin. Remember, the primary responsibility is to stay focused and drive safely. So how can a driver avoid this dilemma? Make sure that clipboards and other miscellaneous items that may shift during transit are secured or stored in a designated place. This way, a driver assures himself that all items that may need to be accessed during transit are always on hand and where they put them. "74% of drivers report eating while driving, and in fact, it is the third most common activity inside a vehicle. And while there aren't any laws prohibiting you from eating while driving, there are several inherent dangers that eating behind the wheel can cause, and you should be familiar with your company's policies and consult your supervisor in regards to eating while behind the wheel of a company vehicle. If your organization does not have a policy on this matter, it should be noted that just like any other distracting behavior, eating while driving does not allow a driver to pay complete attention to the road and should be avoided. One of the more common and relatively newest distractions to the modern-day driver is technology. And while many of the technological advances made over the past several years have been designed to make our lives easier, technology can often be a significant distraction when used in combination with driving. An estimated 51% of all drivers use cell phones while operating their vehicle, and although it is obvious to many of us that dialing a phone number while driving or checking the caller ID display to see who is on the other line may distract your attention from the road, many drivers disregard using a cell phone while driving as a hazard. Unfortunately, this blatant disregard is the root of numerous accidents. Cell phone usage while driving has become such a problem that many states have introduced laws and legislation concerning the use of cell phones while behind the wheel, and it is the responsibility of the driver to be familiar with all state laws that govern the use of cell phones while driving. In fact, we should all be aware of some helpful hints and recommendations about using a cell phone while on the go. Whenever possible, allow all calls that occur while you're operating a motor vehicle to be answered by your voicemail system. You can retrieve the call when you have reached your destination or stopped at a safe place. However, if you must use a communication device while driving, keep the conversation short and to the point. Although another viable and/or legal option to traditional handheld cell phone usage while driving is often a hands-free set, it doesn't always mean that these devices are safe. Studies have shown that hands-free cellular phones distract drivers with the same occurrence that handheld phones do. So what exactly is the best way to effectively use your cell phone while in transit? Well, we suggest that upon receiving a phone call, pull off the road into a parking lot or other safe place, away from other drivers. This will allow you to focus completely on the call and not jeopardize the safety of other motorists. This will also increase the productivity of your call, as you will be able to take notes and reference any documents that may be necessary for a productive call. Cell phone usage is not the only technological feature that can distract a driver's attention. CB and two-way radios, as well as onboard computer systems, can often pose a significant risk to a driver's safety. While these devices are all great technologies which provide us with information rather quickly, each one requires our attention, and more often than not, quite a bit of it, which means that our primary role of driving has yet again been compromised. It is the responsibility of the driver to be familiar with their state laws as well as their organization's policy in regards to the usage of these technologies while driving. While there are many distractions that take place on the interior of a vehicle, distractions that occur outside of the vehicle also pose a serious risk to safe driving. Included in these exterior distractions are pedestrians, unfamiliar routes, poor weather, and outdoor signage. Now, although these distractions can be problematic and often hazardous to a driver's safety, over the next few minutes we will show you how to identify these distractions and safely deal with situations that may arise at a moment's notice. Pedestrians are everywhere and are regarded by many motorists as a major distraction due to their unpredictable nature. As a motorist, it is impossible to foresee when or where a pedestrian may step into a street, crosswalk, or other area shared by your motor vehicle. With this said, it is recommended that all drivers adopt a policy to always yield to pedestrians. Now, while it is impossible to predict a pedestrian's next move, the following are several suggestions that will help you as a driver anticipate what a pedestrian may do next. When driving in areas with high pedestrian traffic, it is always important to keep your eyes in motion. These areas may include, but are not limited to, parking lots, shopping complexes, schools, and/or business parks. Survey your surroundings every 2 to 3 seconds and be sure to incorporate pedestrian surveillance into your driving behavior rather than disregarding it or focusing exclusively on it. Remember, although pedestrians are not currently in a moving vehicle, it is important for you to maintain the same level of caution for them as you would towards other drivers. Unfamiliar territories are any place that you have not traveled to before, whether it is an area that you are visiting for the first time or simply an unfamiliar part of town. Sometimes, even the simplest of routes can pose a potential distraction if it is an unfamiliar one. As a driver, you can save yourself a lot of unneeded stress and worry by pre-planning your route and thoroughly reviewing maps of your destination prior to beginning your trip. Many times, though, it seems that no matter how much we prepare or how well we think we know the area, getting lost is a fact of life. So how can we assure that we don't get lost? Well, we can't. But what we can do is minimize the distracting nature that getting lost often causes. Try these techniques the next time you find yourself traveling to an unfamiliar location. First, aim high and keep your eyes searching down the road while you're looking for your location. Next, when you feel you're getting close to your destination, pull over and stop. Examine your surroundings, cross streets, and nearby addresses, and map out how far you are from your desired location. Continue this technique as often as necessary until you have safely located your destination. Your goal while traveling is to maintain a safe rate of speed while focusing on what is ahead of you. If you happen to pass your destination and need to go back, don't back up. Continue forward until it is safe to turn around. Reversing in traffic is a major hazard, especially if you're driving a large truck. It is always easier, and safer for that matter, to keep your vehicle moving forward where you can see what is in front of you, and whenever possible, always avoid backing up. Bad weather can be an obstacle in all of our lives, especially when it comes to driving, and often seriously affects the flow of traffic and our ability to drive safely. It is important to realize the hazards weather can create and make adjustments to our driving accordingly. Leave more time and plan ahead. The flow of traffic will be slower than normal in the event of bad weather, and you should plan your trip with this in mind. By giving yourself more time to safely get to your destination, you will lessen many of the distractions and stresses that are inherent with driving in poor weather. As a driver, billboards and other outdoor signage can easily become a distraction, and while the signage is created with the intention of providing drivers with information, these signs all too often divert a driver's attention from the road, which can easily lead to an accident. It is important to note that while many billboards are often only a few words long and only take a few seconds to read, we must remember the scenario presented earlier that showed just how dangerous taking your eyes off the road for a few seconds can be. Be careful not to allow yourself to become preoccupied by these often brightly colored and eye-catching signs. Keep focused and remember that the minute you get behind the wheel of your vehicle, your primary responsibility is driving. No matter how many precautions you take or how cautious of a driver you are, there are constantly distractions all around you. It is, however, your responsibility as an educated and conscientious driver to limit these distractions. Being aware of your surroundings, familiar with your route, adhering to your company's driving policies, and planning ahead are all key behaviors that can ensure your safety and the safety of those around you. It is essential that you are equipped with the necessary driving knowledge and ready to respond to any and all driving situations. When you are distracted, you have the potential to become a distraction to others. Don't be the driver to set off the chain reaction of driving distractions. Remember, drive safe, stay focused, and stay alive.